But we're starting out with some news items, and I was gone, so I'm going to be kind of reacting to this in real time as Grace fills me in on what happened.
The first news item, which actually came with more details this morning. So over the weekend, we found out that Gigi Jackson from the Memphis Grizzlies is actually injured himself. He was playing, I think it was like a pickup game or some off-season run, and he had hurt his foot, needed surgery on it. And I think the news that came down today is either that he's about to get surgery or he had surgery and he's going to be out for 3 or more months. He was actually
Damn.
like the bright spot of the Memphis Grizzlies season last year, in a very, very dark NBA season for a
They
team.
can't catch a break, really. That's just
Really.
insane. I feel
I mean,
bad
my
for
first
them.
thought was like, I thought the basketball gods had finished punishing the Memphis Grizzlies, but clearly not. The next bit of news that we got is that Ivica Zubac actually got a 3-year extension with the Los Angeles Clippers. His current deal, he's making about $11 million for this last year. And then every year after that, it's going to be something like about $18.5 million a year for the next 3 years. I was surprised by this extension, not because it happened, but because of the number, as we talked about on the show in earlier episodes about the off-season bigs in the NBA. Pretty much every big that I've seen news about, whether it was like a sign and trade or just an outright signing in free agency, there's a lot of movement in the center market in particular this year. Everyone got overpaid by at least a little bit compared to where I thought they'd be. Whereas Zubats, I think, is the only one that got a little bit less than I thought he would get. Right?
Hmm.
We haven't done player rankings in particular by position or anything in this show, but when you look at what I would think are not necessarily comparable centers, but okay, this is like a guy who's a bit better, maybe a little bit more consistent. The Jared Allens, the Nick Claxtons of the world, making 25 million a year plus, and now Zubats is one of the few players of his caliber that's going to be making less than 20 million, especially in an environment where the salary cap is going up dramatically next season. I was a little bit surprised by it. So,
Yeah, you're right that the bigs are getting paid a lot, especially starting bigs. And
yes,
it's a lot of the market dictating that. And Zubats, I think, is good.
he had the highest field goal percentage from floater range last year
Mm,
of any NBA player. Minimum, I think I had it at 50 attempts.
yeah,
He took less than, say, like a Jokic, who like was kind
is
of
amazing.
Brunson level in the number of attempts, but it was still a good number, over 150 attempts
Yeah.
last season. So that,
I,
and he was one of the best rim protecting bigs in the NBA last year. Is kind of like
mhm.
this math is not mathing for me.
It's definitely good value. That's my first thought. I was like, that's a really good number for him based on what has been going on. So,
Yeah,
I just was like, damn, good for them. They got a good
yeah.
contract with Zubats. Like, I'm not someone who's super low on him. I think he's a pretty good player. So, good for them.
I guess you could say one factor is the fact like he wasn't a free agent this summer, right? He signed an
Yeah.
extension with LA. And there's no he could obviously wait till next summer and enter free agency and see like what his market would be. But I think you and I were both a little bit surprised at how hot, let's say, the market for centers was this summer. There's no telling what that would look like a year from now, especially with a bunch of teams that just signed a bunch
Yeah.
of
There's
centers to
where are you going to
multi-year deals,
go?
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So that it seems like timing particular positions is matters so much in free agency now. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting, but good for Zubats. He has some guaranteed money. He's young. He's only 27 years old, and he's just like a solid starting center in the NBA. So good for him. Good for the Clippers. I think that's just a good deal for them. The last sort of off-season signing news item that we've got here is TJ McConnell just signed an extension with the Indiana Pacers. It's 4 years, 45 million, and there's an interesting deal structure to this. It's not fully guaranteed, and when you compare a 4-year deal for a player like, for example, Zeke Naji, it's a less movable deal because of the full guarantee, including like a player option in that last year, all of that. So for TJ McConnell, who is an older player to be fair, but he is like maybe the most reliable backup point guard in the entire NBA. Like everyone around the league, like loves this guy. Like, he plays so hard. He is a good passer. He is a good floor general, all of that stuff, right? So first year 10 million, second year 11 million, and this is going to kick in um, after this upcoming season. So to be fair, this deal will run. So he's 30 now. He'll be 31 in that first year. So he's going to be on the latter end of his career by the end of this deal. But the last 2 years, the third year is a partial guarantee, and then the fourth year is a team option. It's effectively like near expiring money at the end of that deal, which gives the Pacers a ton of flexibility moving forward, and they already, have so much. It's been interesting to watch the Pacers in particular maneuver over the last couple of
Yeah.
off seasons under the new CBA, right? And I was watching them like hawks because last year they stole Bruce Brown, right?
I love that contract and that number. And I thought
Mm,
we'd see more players and contracts being in that range with not even the CBA. Like I was thinking about this before the CBA was introduced, and I was thinking we just have more people in the 11 to like 15
yeah.
range to keep like good teams together, to have more
Mm,
top heavy rosters with middle range salaries. And so but those kinds of people got a lot of money, and then your flexibility is limited because you're paying your stars so much. And we were on the brunt of that dynamic. Unfortunately, I think it's a really smart contract. Like I wish we had somebody like that, 11 million for like he's locked up, and then a team option, because we're always giving player options. And yeah, they're gonna have good flexibility. Great move. It's resident favorite of this show. He's drafted on every single draft we ever do. So great for the
he sure is.
Pacers. Like,
I make sure of it. I think Indiana's an interesting comparison team to use because, like, Indianapolis is not a destination city. I think Denver's probably a little bit more of a destination than Indianapolis is, right?
no shade.
Although when you're in the East, like other places are closer, but it's not like these guys are, traveling at their leisure during the season anyway. A fellow former ABA team as well in the Indiana Pacers, it's interesting to see how they've maneuvered in contrast to the Nuggets and, very different timelines that these two teams are on, right? Their best player is, I think, 22, maybe going on 23 right now in Tyrese Halliburton. So they haven't had to make these like huge swing for the fences moves, but they were able to like maintain their flexibility, jump when the opportunity presented itself on Pascal Siakam, um, maneuver quite, I think, adeptly at the under the new CBA rules, and then maintain a competitive team with a bunch of young players. And we've talked about how I think they're probably primed for some consolidation after this season, just in terms of like honing the roster in a particular direction. And we'll talk about the Pacers in our tier list. But I think just like looking at how the front office has maneuvered has been interesting to contrast with the Nuggets. And it always helps when you have your backup point guard already. That just like answers a bunch of questions that you don't necessarily have to deal with. So it's good that they just locked him up and they're like, we're just going to keep him. But they have the option, like you said, these like middle tier contracts, they help keep the team together, but they also give the team in the front office flexibility to change things if they need to, because it's such a tradable um,
God,
number.
yeah, it's so good. The only one who kind of loses out is maybe that player. Like if TJ McConnell thinks he's worth more money, but I don't know.
I think it's a pretty fair number, to be fair. Like
Yeah,
this isn't the
I think
Zubac
for
situation,
sure.
especially when you consider the latter end of the career. And when you think about the partial guarantee and the team option, there have been players like, let's say the Raptors with Bruce Brown this season, right? They had the team option on him. They weren't able to find a trade. Bruce gets to make that 20 million because the Raptors are like, okay, we'll just pick up the option now and then see if we can find a trade later.
Yeah,
So
which was
just
a
the
good
fact
strategy.
that you need matching salaries, I think helps these guys that have these like team options and partial guarantees, at least on the margins, because there's always a chance that like they couldn't find a deal for you, but they don't want to just let that effectively expiring money go for nothing. So they'll try to like find something for you the next year. Yeah, just interesting to monitor because we still don't really know all of the different ways that teams are, going to be trying to just find opportunities, let's say, within the constraints of the new CBA. So the last news item is actually something that hasn't happened yet, and that is there's still been no news of Jamal Murray getting extended. I think it's weird. Like we've talked about this, right?
Yeah, can I ask you really quick?
Yeah.
Because I have been gone and I'm reacting to all this, I obviously didn't see a Jamal announcement. What has been like the discourse of Nuggets fan and media around this? Is it like a lot of concern, or are people kind of just like, well, we're still just kind of waiting?
I think there's been a mild level of concern. I think if as the closer training camp gets, I think the sort of temperature on that will go up. Right now, I've seen a couple of the local media members say they're probably expecting a deal to get done by the end of this week, but they're speculating about that. Like no one has said like sources say like I just expect this to get done. Heard some things like, "Oh, maybe there are some formalities that they're trying to get out of the way." I don't know, right? All of the big extensions in the NBA happened much, much earlier in this summer for reasons, right? You want to get those out of the way because it's going to determine what next steps your team can take. And one of the things I'm watching with the timing of this deal is the fact that Aaron Gordon is going to be extension eligible starting, I think, September 27th. And I need to double check the terms of that because there are certain players for whom you can get you start your extension eligibility on this date, and it might end when the regular season starts, and then you won't be able to extend them again until the end of the season. So like after the NBA finals, right? I would definitely want Jamal's deal to get done before that date because it means that they have a window that they can use to extend AG. Obviously the closer training camp creeps in, media day creeps in, everyone's going to be getting questions about this. They're going to start preseason. There's going to be all these questions. And it's interesting to think about, well, one, it was pointed out that technically speaking, Jamal could try again to make All NBA and become Supermax eligible for next summer. Not really something that I'm thinking would be one smart on his part because it's so hard to make All NBA in this NBA. Like Tyrese Maxey had an amazing year last year, probably the kind of year that I would have wanted to see Jamal have in the regular season, and did not make All NBA. Like he was not in the cutoff. He didn't make that cutoff, even with the games played requirements that knocked some other guys out of All NBA eligibility, like the Donovan Mitchells, etc. So I just think it doesn't really make. But players, they're very confident guys. They like to bet on themselves. All of that stuff.
Hold on, I want aside. If the season starts and we haven't extended him, we can't extend him during the season.
So Jamal is one of those players for which that rule does not apply. So it would be kind of like a Paul George situation last season where he would be extension eligible throughout the duration of the season. They could extend him at any time. My concern is more getting it done as soon as possible so that's not a distraction for him or for the team, and also that it opens the window that they have to extend AG earlier.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would extend AG before they extended Jamal. Like there's like an order of operations to these things, right?
Yep. So many people have different opinions on this, and there are psychological phenomena, I guess, that can occur when you have a contract locked up versus when you don't. And is it going to help Jamal's confidence in his game if he just has it and it's not a distraction, like you're saying? Or is it in everyone's best interest to hold off, and if he plays a little bit in this during the season and they see how he is or whatever, hypothetically, is that the way to go? I don't know. That sounds not fun to me. But I hope he gets locked up soon, and I wish I could be in Calvin Booth's head and I could know what he was thinking about Jamal right now. But
we talked about on our last show, Josh Kroenke's made the comments. Everything that the team has been saying externally seems to indicate that they want to get a deal done with Jamal as soon as possible. You know, that's public facing, and we obviously don't know Jamal's side of things. So I guess we will find out in the coming weeks. Like, I'm hoping that a deal gets done sooner rather than later so that we can stop talking about this and start talking about just, what's going on in training camp and preseason. What are you most looking forward to when training camp opens and preseason starts?
Man, nothing. Like, I'm not looking forward to any of that. I'm looking forward to the season because we're gonna get all kinds of quotes from Malone and the coaches and the players about like, Mike's looking so good and Jamal's looking so good in practice. And it's
No.
like I'm just not gonna like I expect to hear that and I'm gonna be like, cool, I'm glad that they're saying that and they believe in their players, but maybe I'm like more interested in Malone's comments because I mean he can like play the game and protect the players and all that, but for the most part, I usually like take what he says seriously, and I think that
Yeah.
he's fairly honest. So I'd be interested to hear what he would say about like how the young players look. I think that's what I'm most forward
Yeah.
to
No,
hearing
I
about.
agree with that for sure.
Yeah,
Because, last season we got the comments. I can't remember if it was early in the season or if it was during training camp, but he seemed to imply in the most diplomatic way possible, because Malone's Malone, that Peyton Watson was perhaps acting like his spot and his minutes had been like assured. And I think even Peyton, he got questions about this, and I think responded verbally well about how he's like, I need to make sure that I'm giving 100%, that I'm coming in and I'm an energy guy and like all of this stuff. And then we saw it throughout various like long stretches of the season where he was doing exactly that, right? Malone's comments about Julian are definitely going to matter. We kind of know from what he said last season that he likes to draw up ATOs for Julian. He likes how hard he plays, like all of this stuff. I'm actually looking forward to preseason because we're going to get to at least have a little bit of a taste,
yeah, that's
maybe,
true.
of how they're going to deal with the non-Jokic minutes, because they're probably going to be playing around with lineups more in games that have no consequence,
Yeah.
right, than they would in the regular season. So we get to see not only how they look, but maybe how the coaching staff is thinking about some of those lineups in the preseason. And we know that like starters don't necessarily even play every game. They definitely aren't playing their normal minute load in those preseason games anyway. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to watching some Nuggets play
Yeah. I mean,
basketball.
when preseason basketball is back, we're all happy because it's actual basketball. So I will be excited to watch that. But because we're that close, I'll be that much more just ready to get to the regular season. But it'll be cool. I can't wait. We're almost there. Yeah, we love you in YouTube and in Serbia and the United States or whatever it is you're watching. And just remember, winning is fun and losing sucks.
Unless you're tanking for flag.
Yeah, because then losing's fun.